Welcome to Lesson 3, Testing Survey and Reflecting upon Questions and Response Choices. This is part of our 5-lesson unit for data management. So now that you've tested out your rough draft on some of your peers, there is now time to revise, and you've got to find out some common problems. So first of all, maybe there's some questions that you missed. Maybe some questions came to you after testing it out that you didn't include in your rough draft. I know that happened for me when I did my survey on internet habits of intermediate students. Some questions came to me like how do you access the internet most often? So now with iPods and iPads and other mobile devices, laptops, desktop computers, it'd be interesting to see just how students are accessing the internet. Another question, have you ever been taught about internet safety? So just from the perspective of a teacher, that's an interesting question to see if a police officer or a parent or another teacher has ever spoken to you about those issues before. What type of internet connection do you have at home? Another important question given the amount of time we spend using the internet or relying on the internet in our class. Other than adding questions to your survey, you might need to look at revising some of your questions. We're going to look at some common problems. Each point in this list is its own slide, so I'm not going to go through reading each point. The first one was questions that can only be answered by people with specific interests. So a typical problem here is, what is your favorite type of dirt bike? Well, it's a problem because not everyone has those interests, and they might not know any kinds of dirt bikes, so they end up just guessing. And if they're guessing, then your results aren't going to be very reliable. A fix might be to show 4 photos of a dirt bike and have somebody choose their favorite, but even then it's a challenge. In that case, you'd have to create some links within your good copy, either using SurveyMonkey or Google Docs. But yeah, I think this is a challenging road to begin with if you're down that road. But any way you can make it more accessible so that everyone can answer your question, the better. Questions that require too much interpretation. I see a problem here. What is your favorite group activity? And this was an actual question I saw from a few years back. And I see hanging out, exploring, texting, or chatting. There's definitely some interpretation there. I'm not sure what the difference between hanging out and exploring is, or what exploring actually is. Texting and chatting could both be considered communication, so it's a little troubling there. You can see in the fix, how would you most commonly choose to spend free time with friends? And I think the options, the response choices, are more clear. One of them is hanging out inside with video games or sitting around the basement. Another one is exploring outdoors. And then finally, being alone but connecting with friends through texting, phone, or online chatting. So I think once you test out your survey, and if people have lots of questions and you find yourself explaining to them, well, you're not going to be there to explain it to them when they're completing your survey online. So you need to be able to eliminate that and make your questions as clear as possible. Options that lead too many respondents to the other response. You can see the problem, what is your favorite sport? And we have archery, badminton, croquet, and then other. So I've tried a stylized example here to show a point that there probably wouldn't be too many people too interested in archery, badminton, or croquet, and then you'd have a ton of people in your other category, and then you'd have a chart where the entire chart would be made up of other, and it wouldn't really say anything to anybody about what the most popular sport actually is. An example on the bottom, there's the fix would be first of all becoming more specific with the question of the options listed, which is your favorite school sport. So you can see that all the school sports are there, and I've actually eliminated the other category just so people wouldn't come up with the responses, like a special kind of dodgeball that maybe one class does and another class doesn't do. So I get rid of that other category. I force the respondents to answer one of those questions, and those are all the sports that Englehart students would play in leagues or play against other schools in. Next problem is range questions where there's overlap. You can see how many hours per week are you physically active. You can see 0 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8. If I were to answer 5 hours a week, I'm physically active 1 hour a day, I wouldn't be quite sure where to put that. Would it be in 3 to 5 or would it be in the 5 to 8? You might get different people responding in different ways, and that becomes a challenge to interpret. How many hours per week are you physically active? So you see in the second example, there's no overlap. It's 0 to 3, then 4 to 6, then 7 to 9, or 10 or more. Range questions that are not exhaustive. So how many pets do you have in your home? 1, 2, or 3? The fix would be to make sure you're including if you had 0 or if you have 19. Regardless, you're able to answer this question. Range questions with poor intervals. Problem: how many hours per week do you spend on the internet? 0 to 1, 2 to 3, or more than 3. Well, that's a problem because you're going to find a lot of people in the more than 3 category. And then you're going to have that issue where everyone's answering a certain way and your chart doesn't really tell you anything in the end. Choosing better intervals. So you can see in the bottom example we have an interval of 5, and I think that's probably the most appropriate interval here. That you wouldn't see too many students over 20 hours a week on the internet, but you might, in which case if you think you're going to get too many in that more than 20 category, you might want to make your interval maybe 6 or 7, but I don't think it would be a problem. Multiple questions combined into one. So problem: what are the best and worst smartphones in the world today? There's 2 questions. It's very unclear what to do. I haven't even shown any response choices, but it'd be confusing. The best way to do it is just be simple. What is the best smartphone in the world today? And you can give options about the Galaxy S4 or the iPhone 5S or whatever else is out there. So testing and revising. So this is the assessment. Basically, if your survey didn't progress at all from your rough draft to your good copy, then you really haven't done your job here. You need to reflect and you need to revise. And so here are some questions. Can I find any of the common problems in my survey before I start testing it out on my peers? After testing my survey on my peers, how can my questions be revised so that I'll get great data? Please record on your rough draft in pen revisions to your rough draft, if any. Thank you.